Welcome to Mr. Giant Reacts and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant back with another video for you, back with another reaction. And this one is what happened to this American in 5 years in a Serbian family. We're going to dig deep into it, and I'm gonna give you some personal vibes too. What is it like a Caribbean boy marrying into an American family? Yes, so we gonna get into that. Hey, this is going to be quite interesting. Let's YouTube and simmer and check it out. But before we do that, don't forget to check out the merch. I'll leave a link in the description. 5% off every order that you place. You place an order, you get 5% off of it. Let's get into this yet, because this is going to be quite interesting. Let's get into this.
This is Alex, he's American, and this is the house where he lives with his Serbian wife and their 3 kids.
I don't speak full Serbski and my mother-in-law doesn't speak English.
Can you imagine what it's like for an American to live in a big house with a big Serbian family?
At any point in time, one of my wife's cousins or uncles can just pop in, and they don't like to tell you they're coming.
He's been living in Serbia for almost 5 years, working remotely for a company in the US. Back in America, he experienced the nightlife in New York and Los Angeles, but now he enjoys rakia in the backyard of a peaceful Belgrade neighborhood.
I was born to live in Serbia.
Let's dive into his story.
How it feels overall to be an American son-in-law in Serbia? Does it help in everyday life?
Oh man, it's been amazing. I mean, they always take my side on everything. Like, maybe part of it's too, I don't speak full Serbski and my mother-in-law doesn't speak English, but we've never had a fight.
Maybe that's right.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if it's because they like me or it was.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting there, because even though my mother-in-law and I spoke English, I didn't understand her English, and she didn't understand mine. So we never had a fight. I got along great with my mother-in-law. Sweet little old lady, you know what I mean? But let me tell you something about the funny story about the English-speaking part of it. I wasn't understanding that Appalachian twang because she's from Eastern Kentucky, right? So I wasn't understanding it. So after a while, I just resorted to nodding and shaking my head. And one day my ex-wife came up to me and she said, my mom thinks you're crazy. And I was like, why? And apparently there were times when I should have said no, I was saying yes, and vice versa, because I was just shaking my head, you know, because I wasn't understanding what she said. So I guess she was saying stuff I should have said yes to or should have said no to. And because it was not so my brother. I feel your pain there. You're a totally different language and you're in a big family there. Oh man, I couldn't imagine.
Because we can't fully communicate, but I love her very much and we can feel each other's energy. I'm sure I'm doing stuff that pisses them off all the time, but I think they give me the benefit of the doubt a lot. So it's, you know, both my brothers, that, you know, can have some tough stories with dealing with in-laws, and I just don't have that. I've felt nothing but love and support from them, and so very grateful for that.
What language do you speak in the family?
Just English. My girls, and they're Serbian first, right? And so I try to practice my Serbian with them. Like the first word I was learning was kakila, right? It's kakila, kakila. You know, that means I pooped, right? I pooped. So, you know, they're screaming in the bathroom that they need somebody to come wipe them, but I can't go around the bar yelling that doesn't really make much sense. So I speak enough to interact with them and where they can understand, but as far as me going to a kafana and loosely being able to speak Serbian, I'm seriously, I'm not there yet. Especially when you start throwing in some rakias, I can barely speak English whenever you know, I have too many of those. So.
Your favorite
I like this guy
in Serbian?
I always love positivity. Like, I'm a very positive person and I like to express that. So I always ask, like, you know, when someone asks me how I'm doing in the States, I'm like, hey, I'm amazing. I'm great. That, you know, life's good. So whenever I had a tutor, I was really looking for those sayings. So, you know, nikad boje, right? Život je dobro. You know, life is good, never better. You know, when people ask how I am. So I really love saying that stuff, just the more positivity side of things. I realized I had been out here for a year and I got to where I don't even know any negative words. And that's probably not good either. But yeah, that's I love those positive sayings.
What are the benefits of raising kids in Serbia?
The socialization of other kids. And you go to a park and there's always kids there. That's not really like that in the States. In the States, you see everyone's really concentrating on having their house, and they have the nice backyard, they have a playground in the backyard. You could really see this when we went to go visit my mother. She was living in a very nice suburb neighborhood, and everybody had a nice house, everybody had a playground in the backyard, but nobody's playing in it at all. And then you go walking through the neighborhood, and everybody's trying to invite you to come over and play with my kid, blah, 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 because nobody wants to leave their home. They all want everybody to come to them. And then out here, space is a lot more limited as far as having a backyard and all that. So everyone goes to the park. So there's always people there. And that's just not something you really see in the States. If you saw an old...
Okay, yeah, him saying that there is I totally understand that. I totally understand that. Because like with my kid didn't really have too many friends when I was around to talk about that he went to hang out with and stuff. Of course, to him being mixed and have an immigrant father sort of threw a wrench in the vibe there. So, he didn't really, wow. I'm just thinking back at that day, there wasn't really kids around. There wasn't really kids around. And I'm the type of person that, like he said, you know what I mean? He said it was limited space. We had backyards on the island, but kids were running around in the village. And then around 6 p.m. you hear parents are like screaming at the top of the lung in the village trying to get the kids to come home. You know what I mean? Okay, there was a kid named Kelvin that lived up on the other side from me, on the other side of the street. And around 6 p.m. when dinner time, supper time, he hears Kelvin. You know what I mean? Come home. Because they're all playing, There wasn't any, and we all had backyards. So, but they weren't out in the backyard. They were out running around in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. No, I lived in the city. And yeah, I did run around the neighborhood and stuff like that, in the city. But I understand where he's coming from with that there, you know what I mean? Because I raised a kid here and there wasn't, you go to the park and stuff and everybody sticks to themselves, you know what I mean? And it's just a different situation.
Old man sitting there at the park here, looking at the kids, he might say something or, might comment about how cute they are. That's a beautiful thing, and it should be a beautiful thing. If you saw an old man sitting by himself in the States watching a group of kids, you start thinking like, okay, what's going on with this here? What's this guy here for? What's he trying to do? Like, I need to watch 4 eyes on my kids just to make sure that it's just a different way of thinking about it. There's just a sense of relaxation that kids can go and be kids, and you don't have to keep them on a leash. So, and that's the way I want my kids to see the world. I don't want them to be scared of the world.
Listen,
I mean, you got to be cautious, but I don't want them to be scared of it. And
he ain't lying. I was always worried about my kid being somewhere, and I don't know why that is. I don't know why that is. It was a whole different thing where I'm from. Kids were just running around being kids. But here, man, and I guess it's because he was a mixed kid too. So you keep an eye on them because kids are vicious, man. They don't play, just to be playing and stuff like that. They would say stuff, stuff they'd hear from their parents. They'd say, you know what I mean. And I'm saying this. I'm talking from my experience. Other people might have a different experience of situations like that, but from my experience, man.
I feel like this really helps them grow to that kind of mentality. Where the States, it's just not, it's not like that.
I think it's quite another level of trust to each other.
Yes, yeah, it is, and it's the way that you want society to be, right? You want there to be a certain trust. I mean, even when my wife was pregnant, she was not waiting in any lines. And if a man or a woman, anybody saw her, she's straight to the front. And then, especially when my middle child was born, that was during COVID, where everybody's waiting in line. Everybody's sick of, because they're only letting a few people in the store, right? So everybody's waiting there a long time. But it didn't matter because my wife was pregnant, and so she goes to the front. And that's what you want. That's the way the world should be. And yeah, I can promise you, we're in the States and my wife's pregnant trying to get in the store, she's not getting to the front of the line. Like, she's gonna have to wait just like everybody else, Now, if she goes to my hometown, it's a little bit different, right? That's a little bit more of that family, community mentality. But in the big cities, you don't see that. And that was something that was really cool about Belgrade. It's like it felt like it took the community aspect from my hometown, but then you threw in, you know, however many 3 million people in a space, and then that mentality stayed intact. And so that was really cool to see.
What do you think about education for kids?
So right now, my old
Now, we said about the pregnant stuff, it also depends on who the person is, too. You understand what I'm saying? It also depends on, because certain people are looked at in certain ways, you know what I mean? Like, let's say a sister, black lady, is pregnant. She's seen as tougher, so she could stand in line. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, you know, it's the same, but you know, I don't want to sound negative and stuff like that, but, you know, it's a reality thing. But, and even not being a sister, like I'd see a pregnant woman come into the grocery store and I'd be like, hey, no, you're not lifting that. No, come call me. No, you know, a co-worker. Whereas most people are like, so what if she's pregnant? Right before I left the job, there was a pregnant manager there, and she was up there climbing ladders and stuff. And I was like, just come and ask me, and I'll come get, you know. And everybody would be like, you know, it's a dual type of thing, you know. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't do it, for one. And then, hey, well, everybody's have to do it, so she should do it too, type of mentality. You know what I mean? And a lot of them was so not used to somebody going, hey, get off that ladder there, I'll come do it. That's just wrong, you know what I mean? And I even went to one of the other managers and I said, why do you guys have her climbing the ladder and stuff? And he was like, hey, and so what if she's pregnant? And I'm like, wow, that's just something else.
oldest just turned, or is about to turn 6. So we're still in the daycare side of things. And again, it's beautiful. I mean, these are like multi-generation teachers that are running these daycares. And you can tell that it's part of their identity. They truly love the kids. In the States, it's a little bit more of a job, but they also have more restrictions. I mean, I'm getting videos and photos of my kids at the camp, and teachers are hugging them and kissing them and being affectionate. And I love that. You can't do that. You can't do that in the States. There's too many, somebody will get sued, right? Some parent will take it the wrong way. It just feels like, again, it's for the teachers, it's part of their identity. They love it. They're not getting rich off this, but you can tell that they're just happy to be at work and they genuinely love the kids. And because of that, my kids love school. They can't wait to go to school. They won't go stay 5 days with their uncle, but they'll stay 5 days with their teachers, right? And their classmates. And that sets them up for the rest of life, to view school that way, to view a place outside of home, to have that much love and affection and excitement for something that you wouldn't recreate that, you know, in the States. I mean, if you did, you're probably spending thousands and thousands of dollars to maybe be in that environment, but at the same time, I don't think you're gonna have that kind of love and care mixed in with it.
So life in Belgrade.
Hey, man, I'll be honest with you. When I was home, there was kids around me all the time. They were playing. You know, I would play with them, blah, blah, blah. One of the first things my mom says, stay away from these people's kids. Because they're gonna say some kind of craziness about you doing something wrong to their kids. Stay away from them. So I stay away from people's kids. I do, man. The sad part about it is like kids love being around me, you know, because I'm 7 feet tall, I'm a giant, and this and that, you know. But stay away from them, because you could say something and people would just go nuts about you saying something about their kids. You could, you know, if you hug their kid, oh man, that's kind of weird. You know, why you hugging the kid, blah, 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 blah. You cannot just be a good human being just be a good human being. It's creepy to them. If a teacher like rub a kid's back, if the kid is in crisis, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it does happen. I was thinking about becoming a teacher. And my ex-wife, who was a teacher for a good 25 years, said, don't do it. She said, don't become a teacher. You know what I mean? Because you know how kids look up to you and how they love you and they want to be around you all the time. People are going to take that the wrong way. So I'm like, okay, well, that omits teaching out of the budget, out of the vibe there. You understand what I'm saying? Yep, he ain't lying there. And that's the American
Great
saying.
comparing to
me.
life in New York. It's
Yeah.
a drastic difference.
Yeah, it is. It kind of depends what you're wanting out of life. There's no better place, in my opinion, for opportunity than somewhere like New York. I mean, you're riding subways there's a homeless guy that probably just pooped himself to the left of you, and on the right you have this $1 million CEO that's running this large business. I mean, everybody's right there. And so as far as opportunity, there's no place like it. I mean, if you're just going there to hang out, I don't think you'll find much joy in that, right? Then you might as well go to LA or the beaches. You get more of the beach lifestyle. So here, there can be opportunity here, but you got to create it. You got to create it yourself. In New York, you can just bump into it. I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. The bar I was working in New York, I met my wife. She was the server there, and the guy who invented this product that I'm still currently working with, he was a regular at my bar. That's New York right there. It's a pretty cool thing, and I always appreciate New York. I love going back, but if you're not living in New York and you go there, it is so overwhelming in terms of the amount of people. They don't have time for the chit chat, and that's where it goes into not as much of a community and more of individuals just trying to get ahead.
What are the different?
It depends on which part of New York you live. It depends on which part of New York you live, because I worked in Manhattan and I lived in Brooklyn. And I remember walking out the house and the neighbor is like, hey, I cooked, come on over. So it depends on which part of New York you live. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. There is certain parts of New York where there is community, at least when I was living there in 1987, 88. There was community there. It just depends on the neighborhood you live. If you live in a West Indian neighborhood, you still got the West Indian vibe. People invite you over to eat, and it's the same thing for like a Puerto Rican neighborhood. Understand what I'm saying and things like that. Now Manhattan, where I'm assuming he lived, it's all business up there, because I worked at a small store on Wall Street for part of the time I was there, and it was all business. People are just walking by each other. There was no time for pleasantries and stuff like that. It just depends on which part of New York you live, because people in New York were a lot friendlier than people give them credit for.
Differences that you notice in everyday life between American style of life and Serbian style of life?
The pace of life, I know everybody says that, right? But it's such a true thing. I know it's a cliche to say, but pace of life is very different. You're conditioned in the States to be productive and do these things. And again, you kind of have to, right? Because you go off and you're on your own at such an early age that you have to, because the bills are coming, rent's coming, you have these things you got to pay for, and then there's always kind of like more, and you need to keep moving. And here it's less like that, but I appreciate that because it allows me to slow down and really be present. I've found that 100% out here as far as being present. I mean, I wake up every day and I'm getting to breathe and I'm on my balcony having a coffee. It's very nice, but when it comes to needing to be productive and needing to get things done, we had gone through a renovation of our backyard. We went through a renovation of our apartment. It is very difficult to find reliable people to come and do work, and then people that will kind of stand by their work. Now you can find it, don't get me wrong, but maybe in my algorithm, the people that I'm finding, it's easier to find not so reliable workers than it is to find true good workers. And that's something that I kind of would struggle with as far as when I need to be productive. It's tough, but it's a balance with everything.
And what do you think about similar?
See, I remember, I think they call it a sari on the island. You need to work on your house. You just, the carpenter in the village, the mason man in the village, he's like, hey, I got food and I got rum, which is rakia there, you know what I mean? Come on over. Let's have a party where we build some stuff and do this and do that. Or, you could just have people come over, you could pay somebody to. But if you're like entrenched in the village, come on over. You know what I mean? Many times I see people did that in the village there. So it's just a difference in thing. You can't really do that in a big city. You know what I mean? And you can't really do that in the suburbs because there's so many restrictions and rules and stuff. You can't really tell your friends, hey, I'm building onto my garage. Come on over. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Because you have HOAs who have to tell you that this is this and this is that and all of that. It's just a different way of doing stuff, really.
Similarities between US and Serbia.
It's more of a human nature similarity. I mean, when you get a bunch of people and you cram them into a small, dense area, there's gonna be a fight and there's argument, and people are just gonna try to just look out for themselves. And again, you're thinking about like New York, right? When people think about New Yorkers, most of the people that you're interacting with in like Manhattan, they're not from New York, right? They're not multi-generational. I mean, you go up to like the Bronx and some of the outskirts of New York. Yes, Long Island, you'll find, but those aren't the people you're interacting with on a day-to-day, right? So you're interacting with people that are out there by themselves. If you took anybody in that environment, there's gonna be that sense of, I just need to look out for myself and get better. It's not about like a difference in people. It's just, it really is like a difference in environment. And then with Belgrade, it's multi-generational. There's not a lot of Serbians that are out here that don't have family 10 minutes away or even living with family. And so I think there's that community aspect that's there, but you would have that in New York if like you get outside of what people think about New York. Because there's suburbs of New York and stuff too. There's suburbs of that. And so I think the people are very similar. It's just the environment is a little bit different.
In America, it's a norm. When children are getting older, at a certain age, they move out from their house. But here you live like in extended family lifestyle.
Yeah.
How it is for you as an American? It's not your environment.
Right. Americans, we really like our privacy, and that doesn't really exist here. At any point in time, one of my wife's cousins or uncles can just pop in, and they don't like to tell you they're coming. They just come. It's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, when you come from a culture that you're not used to that, when I would have these discussions with my wife about how I'm feeling about it, I'd tell her, I'm like, listen, it's not that I love my wife's family. They're beautiful, and they do so much for my kids, but I'm like, the only person in this world that I want to live with is you. And even with the girls, like that's temporary. Like they're fine living here right now, but at some point you kind of expect them to go off and do their own.
Okay, I'll be honest with you, man. The whole thing about the pop-in, when I was on the island, people popped in all the time, and it was cool. But here's what I think the difference is. I live in an apartment. When you pop in, you pop in. You know what I'm saying? Where he is there, look at where he is. When you pop in, you have a whole yard. So they could pop in and be in the backyard and, they're not bothering you. You know what I'm saying? Like on the island, people popped in, but we weren't in the house. We weren't sitting in the house. We were in the backyard. We were in the veranda. We were outside. So the pop-in doesn't seem claustrophobic, like, you know what I mean? Like, I live in an apartment here. If somebody pop in, what are we going to do but sit in this apartment? There's no stimulation. We're in this apartment. So that's why I don't like the pop-in here. Now, if I was living in a house with a yard and stuff, and we could go out and do stuff, and that'd be fine. But when you pop in here, when you live in a city and you pop in, you in. Like when I used to hang out with my buddy, I went over to his house. We just sat in his house, watched TV and stuff like that. And that was cool, we hung out and things like that. A lot of the times we just left the house and go sit outside in a park or something somewhere. We didn't just like stay in the house or something like that. But I think that you got to take that into consideration too. When they pop in, they pop in and they're in. You know what I mean? The individualism too, you know what I mean? It's like the pop-ins there didn't seem invasive because people popped in with, a good little stuff rolled up, or, they pop in with a drink or something. They didn't just pop in and sit there. The pop in came with, with the stuff. Or even when they pop in, they didn't pop in to just sit there. They pop in to go, let's go to the beach. Let's go to the rainforest. Let's go here. You know what I mean? So the pop in wasn't like they pop in and they just sit there. The pop in was like, let's go do something. And that was kind of cool. That's the difference, I think.
But the more that I living in this environment, the more that I can see the appeal to that. But I think with anything, there's a balance. You have a house that you live in, or that you're probably living in with your family, that your costs are probably like not much, right? Your livable costs are probably not very much. Even this house, a simple waiter job covers you all good. To me, that's even more reason to go off and do, like, go try to like shoot for something. Because if you fail, at least you got this to kind of come back to, and you can kind of readjust. I think when you have that safety net, like what Serbia provides, well, a lot of the young generation is provided this great safety net. It's just even more reason to go off and start taking chances. Because the worst thing that can happen is you're just back to where, go try to like shoot for something. Because if you fail, at least you got this to kind of come back to, and you can kind of readjust. I think when you have that safety net, like what Serbia provides, well, a lot of the young generation is provided this great safety net. It's just even more reason to go off and start taking chances. Because the worst thing that can happen is you're just back to where you started. It's like almost like Serbia has that American dream that America prides itself on, that you can go and create something, you can, make this big empire from nothing. Well, it's very difficult. It's a lot harder to at least create that initial thing in the States than it would be here. Now, again, you have the market that's very different, and not to say you're going to go off and create this empire, but I think you can create a nice career for you, or a nice income for you.
What do you think about American dream now?
I think it still exists. The thing about the American dream is that you just got to go find it. Like, people think they're going to move to New York and it's going to be this, like, I'm going to get this crazy job and I'm going to make all this money and then I'm going to do all these things, and it just doesn't pan out like that. But you can go, like, in the Midwest where your costs and stuff are low. What's cool about America is that you can go live in a very small town in America and still make a great income. Like, you have this opportunity of, as long as you're willing to move. And that's the thing about why people consider American dream being dead, is because they're not willing to move, or they're not willing to adjust. They just want it. They're like, I'm living in America, so that means I'm inherently should have everything around me that I need, and it just doesn't really work like that. And maybe the new American dream is moving to somewhere like Serbia. Our passport is great, right? It allows us to travel to a lot of places. Maybe new American dream is living part-time in Serbia while still having a job in the States. Maybe that's what it is. But I think the misconception about the American dream is that you were entitled to it and didn't have to work or fight for it or get creative and all that stuff. I think people are starting to understand that that's not the case. You still got to work for it. It's not your birthright. Just because you're...
See, I'm gonna push back a little bit there with that statement, because I work with people who work there to the bone. And I mean, they work hard. Like, one of my friends right now, she's working two jobs, and she's got a kid. Granted, she's a single mom, but she works two jobs. She get up at 4 a.m., work until 12, then go to another job and probably work until 8 or 9, and does that every single day. So it's not like people don't want to work towards it. It's that people are working so hard and so long to survive that it becomes a cycle. And I guess that's like that all over the world to a certain degree. But I could only talk about where I live and what I'm seeing and all of that. People, they work to the bone, boy. You know what I'm saying?
You're an American, that you deserve success. That's just not how life works. I think the generation that created the American dream probably knew that, and the generation that inherited the American dream maybe lost that sense of, well, I still got to fight for this thing.
What do you miss most from the US in Serbia?
Oh, the bars.
See, you see, that's the thing, the new generation, the new generation, the new generation. Man, the woman I'm speaking about, that's a younger person busting her tail. And I know several young people like that busting their tail to achieve that vibe. So, I'm going to push back on that a little.
I didn't understand there's kafanas and stuff, but there's something beautiful about going to a bar where you sit actually at the bar. You have the stools, and then you have your bartender that's there, and then people kind of just gradually will come sit there, and you can have a conversation, you can not. I really miss that, not friendship, but I guess socialization. It's not something that you see out here. Nobody really sits at the bar. If you're gonna go to a kafana, you go sit at a table, and then you're sitting at a table by yourself having a beer. It's not the same thing. It's not to say it doesn't exist out here. There's bars and stuff you can find, but that's one of the things about being in this kind of suburb area that's definitely not really something that's around. And it probably makes me sound like an alcoholic saying that the thing I miss in the States is bars, but it is an important part of how I always socialized. I was a bartender for so many years. It's just a cool kind of like microcosm of the world, like people from all different backgrounds coming to this area, having beers, and like no judgment, everyone's just bullshitting. I kind of miss that. And Amazon. Amazon's pretty awesome. Now I'm forced to go to malls and stuff to get, purchase stuff.
Yeah,
so
the prices here for equipment is
yeah, and then you have to pay double for something that's just okay. Because if you just try to go cheap on it, it's not any good. I always kind of despise malls, and now I kind of find myself spending more time in malls than anywhere else. When I go back to the States, I have a pretty sizable Amazon bill, like of materials waiting at my hotel as soon as I get in.
When you move to a new country, it's always trade. You're trading something for something.
Right. And you're getting frustrated, right? You get frustrated with the things that you used to be able to do or want to do or enjoyed doing, right? Like even sports, American football. I mean, with my team, because I'm a big fan, I'm from Missouri, right? Big fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. And they've never been as good as what they are now. Like they're amazing. Which also means that all their games are like prime time in the States. So they don't turn on until 2 a.m. That was a big part of my identity, was being for my hometown sports. And it's tough to not be able to really enjoy those the way that I used to. Sunday, you went to someone's house, you just watched, there's football from 12 to 9 p.m. there's football, and then you're grilling and all, and there's a cool kind of get together every week. Yeah, that's just another thing that I guess I miss. It's an adjustment. When you take the things that used to give you pleasure and then you take them away, what do you do now? Well, you can complain about it, or you go find new things, right? But that's tough. That's a tough adjustment, especially later in life when you have kids and you're not going out and socializing like you used to. There's a tendency to kind of sit around and feel sorry for yourself, but there's so much beauty around. I mean, it's funny. So on my balcony, we see all of Belgrade. Just see everything. Like the Temple of St. Savi, you see Belgrade waterfront, you see it all. But I know when I first moved out here, it's like I'm seeing power lines, seeing smokestacks and all, and this is what I'm focusing on. And as you start getting a better mindset, you start really looking past those things, and you realize, well, there's these beautiful red roofs over here to my right, and then you have the Temple of St. Savi, and then you start looking past that stuff and focusing more on the beautiful stuff. I think it's good to kind of get those things that you are used to giving you pleasure and having them taken away and learning to find new things. And that's what being out here has taught me, so I'm very appreciative of that.
Okay. I thought they was going to concentrate more on the family life things of it, but it's hard going to a different culture, a different country, in a different place, and actually marrying into that situation. And it's a totally different dynamic to what you're used to, what families expect of you, and kind of like what you expect of them. Now, coupled with all the other things that's going on, all the cultural things that you have to get used to, you know what I'm saying? Something as simple as this. I was raised Catholic. And I'm marrying into a Protestant type of vibe. And going to church, there was a different situation. It was just so different. I'm used to the Catholic stuff, the robes and a lot of Latin, hymns and stuff like that, to the dancing and the singing and the prancing around and all of that, you know what I mean? I just never, I'll be honest, I never acclimated to that at all. It just was so different to me. And then, of course, there was the ethnicity problem. Just never fit in. And to be honest, with you, because that, and it's funny that I reacted to this because I I don't think my in-laws would know anything about where I'm from at all. They just didn't care to learn. I was like a side thing. And not saying they were bad people. That's not what to say. I mean, they were pretty pleasant to me. Uh, well, some of them were. But you just don't feel like you belong at all. And you need that if you're going to acclimate to a situation, you know what I mean? And the truth of the matter is, that sort of impacted me to the point where when people invite me to the house, I just doesn't go. I just don't go. It's just so uncomfortable for me to go to people's houses. The only person's house I went to that I felt comfortable in was my buddy Scott's and them house. I felt comfortable there. To be honest with you, I don't, and I still don't feel comfortable going to anybody's house. Unless, of course, if the person is a single person and it's just me and them hanging out. But if I'm going to, like, people always invite me to the Thanksgiving or the Christmas, and I wouldn't go on, you know what I mean? Listen, there is always somebody in that house that's going to say something way stupid or way offensive in that house. I went to somebody's house one time. It was one of the in-laws. It was one of the in-laws' spouse's house. And I went into the house and the grandfather said to me, if you know you're coming from the coal mines, you need to take a shower before you come sit in my house and put black all over my couch. That's what he said to me. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like old age. It wasn't like anything like that. This man had his faculties in place, and he said that to me. And I'm supposed to feel comfortable sitting there. And then the dude went like it was a joke. It wasn't a joke to me. Come on now. You watch what you say. When people come to my house, I watch what I say. I mean, I'm blunt and I say what's on my mind, but I don't say it offensively. I say it with some kind of a humanity to the vibe. You know what I mean? But nah, I never felt part of it. I was just something just floating around there. I went for Christmas and stuff, and I was just floating around. The guys are in the segmentation of everything, gender, race, and everything. It's like the guys were in the living room sitting there talking about sports and building stuff and all of that. It's not stuff that I can't talk about. I don't want to sit there for 6 hours to talk about sports, manly stuff. They got me so laughter or fun or something like that too. So I ended up in the kitchen with the women because they were in there laughing and talking. it's like the roles. They have these roles where men are supposed to do this and women are supposed to do that, and everything was separated and stuff like that. And I'm gonna reiterate, it's not like they were bad people. It's just like the cultural dynamic was like, damn, when we had Christmas and stuff, we weren't in the living room, us guys watching sports while the women were out there doing other stuff and in the kitchen and stuff. Everybody was sitting around talking. That TV was turned off. There was no background noise. We go out into the backyard and chill. Granted, nobody could sit in the background and chill. It was freezing, but still, you know what I mean? It was everybody was in the same room together, just laughing and talking and stuff. And I'm guaranteeing that's how it is in Serbia. You know what I'm saying? But everything was just so disjointed to me. I made the best of it. I had some fun there, you know what I mean? But other than that, it was just so different. And I know my man is having a little harder time than he's saying acclimating to it. He has to. Number one is the language. The language. And coming from a culture where they think everybody's talking about you behind your back, man, that's going to be hard for him there because if they're talking in the Serbian language, he's wondering if they're talking about him. Shoot, you go outside and there's a couple of people standing there talking Spanish or something, and they're going to speak English. You could be talking about us. You could be saying this and that. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? The thing. So yeah, acclimating is hard. And him living there. But like he said something, you concentrate on the beautiful things. It was beautiful out there, out in the mountains out there. It was gorgeous out there in the mountains. The Christmases was just not like Christmas. The last time I felt Christmas was when I lived in New York. That was the best Christmas I had. But yeah, I dig what he's saying. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like on the video, comment down below, tell me what you think, you know what I mean? And I know there's some people from Serbia and the Balkans who are living in other cultures. Hit me up in the comment section. Tell me how your acclimation is coming. You know what I mean? Did you marry into an American family? Did you marry into a British family? Did you marry into an Australian family? Wherever you are, you're married into something that's different from your culture. Hit me up in the comment section and tell me how that's going for you. In the meantime, man, y'all take care of each other. And let's not let all that other stuff get in the way. Let's all be human, because you know what? If we all just break it down to the basic human vibe, we're going to realize that we are not as different as we think we are. Psychologically speaking, we react pretty much the same to situations. You know what I mean? It's just from a different cultural perspective. So think about it that way. And let's try to bring some peace to this world, okay?